This is the story of a square mile patch of land in northern New South Wales.
The interesting part about this patch of land, Andrew, is it's been in the hands of sawmillers for the past 100 years. And as you can see, it's still turning out timber to this very day. Hurford was a man with vision and drive. Laid off in the depths of the Great Depression, he forged ahead building houses, first from sawmill scraps and later with timber he milled himself. The business grew, and today, 3 generations and more than 80 years down the line, Jim Hurford's legacy lives on. Hurford Hardwood is one of Australia's most vibrant and forward-thinking timber companies.
Grandad was successful in his life, not just materially. I think he always saw the other values of things. He wasn't what I would say as a money-hungry man, but he was a successful man over a long period of time. But he valued all things. He didn't get a block of land like this and say, well, I can optimise the money and get all the timber out of here and then sell it on and move on to the next thing. He loved this land and he looked after it, and he instilled in the rest of the family the way that it needed to be looked after in the long term.
The timber story of this 1 mile square block of land at Bungawalbin, south of Ballina, goes back more than a century. It had been used to supply a nearby sawmill since the early 1900s. By the 1950s, Jim Hurford was having trouble getting enough timber for his growing building company, so he bought the mill and the land in 1952.
This was a block that was largely blackbutt, which was good for the house framing that we were cutting in those days, and some timber for flooring and chamfer, which was hard to get. It sounds a bit unusual today to think you had shortages of timber, but in those days you had shortages of everything.
Andrew, there are a lot of trees on this patch of land, which is kind of surprising to me given that 5 generations or 100 years of timber families have owned it.
Yeah, well, really that's really the reason why there's so many trees here, is that being timber families, they've always valued the timber and managed it for the timber. And there's just a principle of leaving things better than when you receive them. And our whole principle here is to manage it so there's more timber when I move on for my children and grandchildren, and if they continue to manage it that way, it will always be the case.
Hey, Pop.
Howdy, how are you?
You sorting them out for me, are you?
Yep.
The themes of forest management and family run parallel in the Hurford organisation. Eric Rankin worked nigh on 50 years for New South Wales Forestry. When he retired, he took over management of the Bungawalbin block. He remembers the formative years of forest management.
If we fell a tree with seed in it, I'd break the branches off, take them home, I'd put them in the carriage and had a plastic sheet underneath to catch the seed, and every now and again I'd go out and shake it and the seed would all fall through onto the plastic, and I'd bring it back down and re-sow it like a farmer does with oats or anything, you know, walk around and throw it over the area.
Eric's son Jim now looks after this site and others in the Hurford estate. These family-owned forests form part of a 3-tiered timber supply chain, with state forest and other private land making up the mix. Hurfords have also invested heavily in groundbreaking hardwood plantation estate, which aims to establish 25,000 trees annually, making the company one of Australia's biggest tree farmers, with standing timber worth millions.
I think it's one of the key things for the timber industry that we produce a product which we can continue to produce till the end of time if we manage it well. It's got, you know, those wonderful credentials of locking up carbon right into the product itself. The product is generally used for the longer term. It really fits in with a lot of where I think society needs to head.
And what about Jim Hurford? What would he think about his company's growth and success? Every now and again, the family dusts off his old Chevy Blitz and snigs a log out of the bush, just the way Jim taught them to do it.
I think he would expect that would have. we've got to respect his memory and keep it going, and keep it healthy. There's a lot of change, isn't there? Wherever you go, you see change, and most of us old blokes don't like it. But life goes on, and I think we've got to look forward, and there's always someone in the family that wants to keep doing it.
Today, Hurford Hardwood employs more than 100 people across New South Wales and owns and manages 5,000 hectares of private forest and hardwood plantations. The 1 square mile Bunga block has been producing sawlog quality timber for more than 100 years and shows no signs of slowing down.